Hello. Today's message comes from Acts chapter 7, verses 54 to the end of chapter 7. Now, this part of Acts basically refers to the death of Stephen. Stephen was a devout follower and disciple of Jesus, and he was notorious for being outspoken, being out in public, when all the other disciples at this time, due to the persecutions, they were hiding. Stephen was not. So, at this part of Acts, the story, we hear basically Stephen is kind of cornered by all these religious figures, and they are wanting him to say or deny that Jesus was a savior. And at this point of the story, Stephen sees a vision. He basically sees Jesus standing on the right side of the throne, and this is very particular because two things happens. One, he basically refers to Jesus as the Son of Man. This is the second time in the Bible that Jesus is referred to as Son of Man. The only other person who ever called Jesus Son of Man was actually Jesus himself. Another thing that is unique about this vision is Jesus was not sitting, he was standing. Now, why would someone be standing? Well, basically, a lot of times in customs and stuff, when you're welcoming somebody in, you're going to stand up, right? So that way you can shake their hand, give them a hug, welcome them into your home. So in a way, Stephen was seeing a vision that he finally was going to come home to paradise, come home to heaven. And obviously, shortly after this, the Sadducees and all these people took him out outside of the temple and they stoned him to death. And interestingly enough, there was a guy by the name of Saul who was watching this and he was approving of it. Now, later on, we know that Saul becomes Paul after he receives his own visions. But let's refer to why Stephen's story would relate to us today in the fact that God is our refuge. Now, Stephen, at the time, he was being persecuted. He basically, no matter what he did, even though he felt it was right, even though he felt deep down in his heart, this is what he's supposed to be doing, everybody else in that area was against him. He had no friends. He had no escape. He basically was cornered, but he would not give up because he knew that he would be saved by God. He had trust in God, that God would protect him. God would make sure that he wasn't going to get hurt again. Today's society, being a Christian, being a devout follower of religion, you're going to have people who are going to claim you're wrong, this and that, science and all this stuff says that why are you believing in this stuff? Why are you doing what you're doing? Believe me, as someone who basically stepped away from my faith for a while and had a bad boy phase where I was going out and partying every weekend, and sorry, mom and dad, when I was doing all this stuff, and yeah, was I really enjoying my life? No, I had friends though. I had lots of friends. I had a lot of attention. I was felt welcomed by my group that I hung out with at the time. However, I in myself didn't feel right. I'd wake up on a Saturday or Sunday and basically I just was like the energy, the joy that I felt the night before, it didn't last. When I finally realized that what I was missing in my life was Jesus, was God in my life, and I started going back to church and I started being more involved, I realized that by doing what Jesus has asked us to do, by listening to his stories, to his commandments, as well as following a righteous path, I found an inner peace, a refuge from the storms of life. Yes, granted, I don't have as many friends as I used to. Granted, sometimes Friday and Saturday nights, I kind of miss hanging out with people and doing all this stuff, but that's not my life anymore. In fact, actually, as I get older, I kind of realize I really don't like the party scene as much as I used to. But when I'm sit there, when I feel that love because I help somebody else, because I try to be a better person and try to give people hope, I feel better inside. And I know that basically God and Jesus, they're going to protect me. They're going to give me comfort when it gets bad. When I have all my friends saying, well, you're wrong, you're such a party pooper and all that stuff. I know that I feel better being that solo guy out by myself. And here's the funny thing is, I'm not by myself. Being a member of my church, I've got a family. I've got mom and dad who love me. They're down the road, about a mile or two down the road from me. I've got friends who would reach out to me. I have friends that basically they're going through the same thing I am. And one thing that we realize is we're a family. We belong together. Later on in the Bible, you hear a story in First Peter where basically we talk about Jesus being a foundation stone, and we're placed next to it. Now, for someone who worked together with a carpenter and masonry and people like that, I learned some stuff about the old building of temples. Foundation stones, they were not just piled, in a rock and you just basically reach behind you, grab a stone and just place it next to it. You would basically find a stone that was a perfect fit, a match to that stone. And Jesus being our living cornerstone, we're going to be placed next to him. So we're chosen in a way. And I don't know about you, but being realize that I'm chosen to be placed in a certain spot and that I have a certain spot in this building, this temple, makes me feel great. And when we're placed together in a neat order, we're going to be strong. Our temple will not fall down. We will weather the storms. So as you go throughout your day, throughout your week or month, I ask that you basically remember during those bad times that you're never alone. God is going to be a refuge for you during those storms. He listens and he will be with you. Thank you and good luck.